Hi everyone. I want to start this off by asking you to think about your meals. When's the last time you had a meat-free meal? Was it for breakfast? Did you have cereal? Did you have a peanut butter and jelly for lunch? Did you have a meat-free dinner last night? And then I also want to ask how often you eat meat. Is it for every meal? Is it every day? Is it once a week? Rarely? Etc. My name's Angie, and I personally have been vegetarian for about 7 years. And today I'm going to be teaching you how to make vegetarian fried rice. So I chose vegetarian fried rice for a couple of reasons. First of all, my parents have been vegan for about 10 years, and that's part of why I became vegetarian. But once I came to college, I had to make the decision to stay vegetarian outside of their house, and I did. But not being with them meant that I had to learn to cook vegetarian meals for myself. And one of the first things I learned how to make was fried rice because it was super easy, and also fried rice is a staple meal in Filipino culture. So my parents are there on the left, the vegans, and then on the right is my Filipino grandma and my mom again. And my grandma always made fried rice for me, and she was always telling me how easy it was to make, and I ended up, perfecting it in the past couple months because I've been cooking it so often. So I figured I would share that with you guys today. So the first thing you're going to need to do is make rice the day before. So the brand of rice that I use I got from Giant, and it's that middle picture right there. I use 1 cup of rice, 1 cup of water, and then I put it in a Tupperware and let it sit overnight. If you use fresh rice, your fried rice is going to be soggy, which is just not ideal. On the left is the vegetables that I used. You can really use any type of vegetable, frozen, fresh, whatever the case. And then on the right, all the way to the right, is the tofu that I use. And you can use any brand, really. I got this from our Giant in Fredericksburg, but you want to make sure that it's extra firm because that way you can use it right away. You don't have to put that plate on top of it and let the water soak out. It's ready to go as soon as you open it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is preheat your oven to about 375 degrees, and that's how you're going to cook your tofu. And then next, you want to coat a pan in canola oil. I use canola oil because olive oil will burn up too quickly. So layer your pan with that canola oil, and then I use a ton of garlic, about a whole spoonful, and then you can just leave that alone. You want to turn your pan up to about 6 to 7, and then you can leave the garlic on there until you can kind of start to smell it, and then we'll move on to the next step. But while we're waiting for that garlic, you can start on your tofu, and you want to cut it up into cubes or strips, and then you can put them on a pan and put them in the oven like this for about 16-17 minutes. I mean, you're going to be at the stove while they're cooking, so just kind of keep an eye on them, and I'll show you what they're supposed to look like when they're done. So once that garlic kind of gets going, you can go ahead and add your vegetables. Stir them until they kind of get that seasoning in. You want to add your carrots first if they're fresh because they're harder and they'll take a little bit longer to cook, but my carrots were frozen, so I went ahead and just added them. And then you can add that Tupperware rice, and then it's going to look like a chunk for a second, but once it warms up, you can start to break it up. And once you add the rice, you need to start paying attention or else it's going to burn. For seasonings, I went ahead and used onion powder, garlic powder, and soy sauce. And here's about the amount of soy sauce that I use. And then once I tasted it, I ended up adding a little bit more because I just like my things salty, but that's completely up to you guys. So on the left here is a picture of the tofu after it's done. You can see how it's got that brown crispiness to it, and I went ahead and added that to my fried rice. Stirred that in, and then the final thing I added was toasted sesame oil, which is that picture on the right. I added about a capful all over, stirred it in, and then I took it off the heat. And this is what the final picture looked like. You can see those pieces of tofu in there, the vegetables, and the rice. I hope that all of you guys are willing to try this recipe. It's super, super easy. You can kind of add whatever you want into it. And the main reason that I'm vegetarian is to try to decrease my carbon footprint, which is my impact on the environment. Obviously, I'm not pushing anybody to become vegetarian completely. I know that that's a big commitment. But if you're able to just make this meal once a week instead of doing a meat meal for dinner, that can significantly decrease your carbon footprint and overall have a better impact on the environment, which I think is super, super important for all of us right now. So thank you so much for learning a little bit about my culture and being vegetarian, and I hope that you try out this recipe. Thanks.